Welcome back, Canonites. As you're likely aware, I recently put out a video diving into the history of the MJOLNIR platform. While writing it, it spawned an idea in my head, one that I have shared on both Twitter and Reddit, but I now bring to you today in video format and a little more fleshed out. Ever since the release of Halo CE Anniversary, the development of MJOLNIR Mark V has bothered me. This was only further complicated when 343 released the Mark V Alpha in Halo 5. Now, one could argue the designs of multiplayer armor shouldn't be taken too seriously, but until we get some official word from 343, the armor sets should be treated as canon variants as they always have. So, I began to wonder how all these versions of the baseline Mark V could coexist. That's when I recalled the development of Mark IV. As detailed in my recent video on Project MJOLNIR, linked to the top right and in the description, Mark IV went through a lot of design variants in its early stages as it was testing new technologies and establishing the final optimal design. While Mark V likely wouldn't have needed nearly as many development prototypes, the idea that there were a few I think is more than a possibility. And if we look at the two Mark V variants in Halo 5, Mark V's Alpha and Delta, they seem to establish something of a development continuity. So with that, let's dive into the theory. In my mind, the Mark V Alpha was the initial version, perhaps the first functional prototype of Mark V, likely an early testbed for the technologies that the Mark V platform would bring to MJOLNIR. This could certainly explain why it's so blocky and why it's even called Alpha. If we look at initial sketches of MJOLNIR in Halsey's journal, along with a schematic that was included with the journal, the early versions of Mark IV were rather bulky and simple in design. Only with refinement did we get the Mark IV that we see in Halo Wars. It's hardly proof of anything, but I think it does support my theory at least a little. After the materials group worked out certain kinks with the Alpha design, they would contact a private company to produce the Mark V-B. This variant officially entered service on November 24, 2551 to select Spartan 3 operators and a few Spartan 2s. In my mind, the B stands for Beta, indicating the second main iteration of Mark V. This one meant to field test the shielding systems while development continued on the memory processor superconductor that would allow the suit to carry an AI in the final version. When I first posted this idea on Twitter, one person pointed out that the B could very well stand for Bravo if one were to go by the NATO phonetic alphabet, which does make a bit of sense. Personally though, I prefer Beta, looking at these Mark V models more like software development. The first working iteration would have been the Alpha model, the second, closer to a release candidate, would be the Beta, and so on. However, there is no definitive proof either way. I also like to think that the Mark V-B was issued to Grey Team sometime before they went on their mission to Glyke. In Halo Envoy, it's made clear in the text that Grey Team were sporting a MJOLNIR variant that had shields. Assuming Grey Team wasn't issued new armor immediately before the mission to Glyke, something I find unlikely given how damaged it's said to be in Halo Envoy, the Mark V-B seems the most logical explanation for the presence of shields. Grey Team could have easily been issued the armor in late 2551 before they were sent on a mission that would put them too far away to be called for Red Flag. Moving on, after the successful deployment and testing of the Mark V-B, Materials Group and Dr. Halsey would move on to the final, at the time, iteration of Mark V, the second generation of it as it were, that would be issued to the Spartan 2s on August 29, 2552. This version would effectively be the Gamma version, the final release candidate as it were, if you were talking software. As it was the final version of Mark V though, it wouldn't need a designation beyond simply Mark V. Finally, we come to the oddball of this theory, but the one that initially sparked it, the Mark V Delta helmet. This is essentially the Mark V helmet upgraded originally to work with Mark VI and later Gen 2. It's odd that a simple helmet upgrade would warrant a new designation, but I think it can be justified as, along with technically being the fourth iteration of the main Mark V helmet, it needed a designation to differentiate it from the Mark V helmets already on the Gen 2 platform. Given that the Delta helmet seemingly never received a designation until it was ported to Gen 2, I find this at least somewhat likely. And that's basically my theory to iron out the somewhat confusing mess that Mark V has become in recent years, and make sense of some of the questionable designs. Okay, the one questionable design, really, the Alpha. Seriously, what was up with that thing? But regardless, what do you all think? Does this make sense? Are there too many holes for it to be believable? Or something else? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching as always, and until next time, this has been Halo Canon. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribing, and sharing it around. You are the reason I get to keep doing this, so thank you, profusely thank you.